everyone. It's morning here on Vancouver Island, Canada, and I'm looking at a beautiful mountain covered in mist in front of me. Today, I am interviewing the incredible Lucy H. Pearce. Hello, Lucy.
Hello.
Welcome to another edition of Conversations with the Universe. I'm really excited to interview you and to hear your wisdom. How are you
really
today?
Nice to be talking with you.
Wonderful. I'm going to start with our topic. Our topic today is Arise, Burning Woman, and how to navigate our outer flames of fear and turn that into purpose, which is something that I think you're going to be able to speak to wonderfully. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with your bio so people can know who you are. And I have your book right here, my favorite one of your books, Burning Woman. I was just thumbing through it. It has many bookmarks in it and notes and all kinds of things that
I was just looking for mine. I've got mine beside my bed, and mine also has lots of bookmarks in it.
Yeah. I'm like, it's like it's become something that I go to on a daily basis to remind myself, you know, how to be real. Anyway, Lucy H. Pearce is the author of 9 life-changing nonfiction books for women, including Nautilus Award winners Medicine Woman and Burning Woman, and Amazon #1 bestsellers Moontime and The Rainbow Way. Her most recent book, Creatrix, She Who Makes, launches in November. This November. Yes.
Like next week.
Looking forward to it. Her writing focuses on women's healing through archetypal psychology, embodiment, and creativity. She is the founder of Womancraft Publishing, which publishes life-changing, paradigm-shifting books by women, for women, which is just incredible. So Lucy's work has been featured in dozens of online and print media outlets, including CNN, the London Review of Books, Psychologies magazine, Sage Woman, Tiny Buddha, The Green Parent, and Rebelle Society, among others. She has contributed to a number of book anthologies, including Goddess, When She Rises, and Women, If Women Rose Rooted, another one of my little Bibles. A much in-demand teacher and speaker, she was the keynote at the Goddess Conference in Glastonbury in 2019, and you are the mother of 3 children, and you live in Cork, Ireland.
Which is very dark, as you can see. Yeah. I need to apologize. We're full into winter mode here, so I've got my scarf on, and it's dark.
Oh, that's amazing. It doesn't matter. I love the dark. And I was just actually reading in your book before we got on here about the dark feminine, and it is a subject that I am really fascinated with. So
I'm becoming the dark feminine in front of you.
I saw that. Went into the shadows for a moment there. Oh man. So the thing I'd like to start with, Lucy, is how do you feel about sovereignty as it relates to women? It's a question I've been asking other women that I've been interviewing.
It's not a word that I use. It's not a word that's strong in my vocabulary, but the energy behind it for me is very much about having the power to define ourselves, to conduct ourselves as we see fit, to be in charge of ourselves. And that is something that as women, our foremothers, very few of them would have had. And that as women living in the 21st century in the Western world, we are more privileged than most to have had, especially for me, living as a white woman in a heterosexual marriage. I am more privileged to have a sense of sovereignty. It's certainly not absolute by any stretch of the imagination, but it is something. I saw a quotation again today, which is, "You are your grandmother's prayers answered." And when I think of my grandmother's lives, I mean, my grandmothers were incredibly creative women, real powerhouses in their own right. But their creativity was still kept pretty small by the fact that they were women. If they were living today, it would have had a far broader and wider reach, a far bigger influence than it did. And So for me, it's the ability to see, I see things in words connect to images in the way my brain works. And so the idea of a sovereign is energy down and then energy out through the hands. So it's the channeling in of power, the rooting it through the legs, and then the being able to direct it out exactly as you see fit.
I love the way you frame that. And I love the visual as well. I actually felt it as you were pulling that energy down. I could feel it in my body and rooting and being able to bring that out as energy again. Sovereignty, I feel, is definitely a conversation. It's not something that we have mastered or something, like we're still learning what sovereignty is. And sovereignty around the world is different to different women. So you and I can have this conversation. It would be a completely different conversation than two women in another culture would have. And they might not be able to relate to the word at all. But,
and I think, there's the concern with the term sovereignty. We potentially got a connection to colonialism, potentially got a connection to the kind of the ideology of empire, of ruling, of people having power that perhaps they shouldn't have, that they've taken or stolen from others. So there is that kind of danger there, but I know that the way you're meaning it isn't that, and therefore there is this other possibility for what power wielded with wisdom and groundedness and connectedness can do in terms of an individual being empowered and using that power. Then fabulous. But I agree that there are echoes and shadows to a word like sovereign that are connected to the dark patriarchal past.
Yes, exactly. I'm very quickly trying to run away from that shadow side of the word sovereign and trying to re-embody it into something that we can fashion for ourselves. And that is not based in it, like you said, based in wisdom, but not based in control, or one person having the privilege of being sovereign, but others not having the privilege of being sovereign. We all must be sovereign. And it goes way beyond masculine, feminine, because a lot of men aren't sovereign in their own right either.
And like when you said, what is sovereign to you? I got in my mind the image of, I don't know, I've seen her in various places, but like, a proud queen, with the scepter in her hand and that kind of sense of embodied power,
That we take responsibility for ourselves. Do you know what I mean? So arise, burning woman. Those are really powerful words.
I've written them a lot of times. I've signed a lot of books.
I mean, it brings so many images to my mind and also to my heart. And so I'd love if you could speak to our subject today, how to navigate the outer flames of fear and shame in order to express the fire of our inner passion. How has that looked maybe in your life, and how have you been able to bring that to others as well?
I live in a state of fear and anxiety most of the time. That is my normal and natural state. To me, see, I can see myself talking to you on the screen, and I can see women at home watching this and thinking, she doesn't look scared. And I wish that I could open my skin up and show you how my heart is pounding right now, and that I'm feeling sick in my stomach and my throat is closing up a little bit, and I'm trying to keep myself breathing, and I'm telling myself, Lucy, don't burst into tears now. You can't see that, because in order to survive, try to thrive, I have learned to create a very good mask. And this mask can cover up a lot, because what is going on for me underneath is real fear. Fear that I'm going to mess up right now. Fear that people aren't going to like me. Fear that I'm not going to be able to find the right words. fear that I'm not going to do my book credit, fear that I'm not going to answer your question in the way that you want me to answer it. They're just some of the fears. I've got 2 children downstairs who things could kick off at any moment. I walk this tightrope of fear simply to exist. And therefore, for me, the safest thing to do is to stay very, very small and very, very quiet and invisible, because then I will be safe. And I know I have that to an extreme. I struggle with anxiety. I have Asperger's. It's a big thing for me. But I know that most women, a lot of women, on some level have those fears and have that belief that if you stay quiet, you stay small, if you are good, you will be safe. And for women, being safe is our baseline requirement. And for most white men, middle, upper class white men in our culture today, that is not their main driving force. There's something that I heard a few years ago which just rang so true for me. I can't remember who said it, but it is men's greatest fear is that women will laugh at them. Women's greatest fear is that men will kill them. There is this fear that we are not safe. It's not just we're not psychologically safe. We're not, we don't like people laughing at us, but we'll live. But underneath it is this fear of I'm not safe on a physical level. If I step out of line, if I put my head above the parapet, if I open my mouth, if I say the wrong thing in the wrong place, I could be in danger. Might not be being killed. It might be being called crazy. Being called crazy equals people taking your children away, you having to be medicated, you being, locked up in a mental hospital. It could be you losing your job. It could be the whole community not talking to you because suddenly they've all decided that you're the crazy woman. There's all sorts of costs. Not all of them are with your physical life, but they're with your livelihood, your sovereignty. Your sovereignty can be taken away from you. And so we've learned this. Most of us have learned that in order to stay safe, we need to keep quiet and small. And we've learned this from our lived lives. We've learned this from what we've been taught in schools by our mothers, by our grandmothers, by the example of people from history. We've learned this again and again and again. So there's that fear. That fear is big.
Yes.
For a lot of women. And then there is this desire to do what the fear says you can't and you mustn't. The desire to express what is real for you, be that pleasure, be that pain, be that frustration or anger or joy or love or whatever it is that your body and your mind are experiencing, to just simply express it, be it with words or sounds or in the way we dress ourselves or the way we move our bodies or the decisions we make. And for a lot of us, the desire to stay safe is bigger than that desire to express. But as we get older, that desire to express gets bigger. And at some point in a lot of women's lives, there comes a moment where they have to decide which one wins. Whether the desire to express wins or whether the desire for safety wins. And so in the language I use in terms of Burning Woman, the reason it's called Burning Woman is because I noticed time and time again women using terms of burning to describe both this passion, this inner flame that's rising within them, this burning passion that wants to be expressed, that needs to be shared, along with this fear of being burned from the outside. both the historical burning of women as witches, which on some level is real in our minds, but also that fear of being burned from the outside, being shamed, being mocked, being shunned from a community, being chastised. That's hurtful. That happens enough times and you're like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I just found it very interesting that in both of those examples, the inner need for expression and the outer fear, the fear of what's coming from the outside, it's the metaphors of fire that are being used. And so that was at the root of why I decided to call it Burning Woman, and why it kind of guided my path into how to express that, because they're two sides of the same piece. And so I needed to look into, why do women feel this way? Why does this seem to be a particularly female experience, both the burning passion and the fear of being burned? And so Burning Woman goes through that exploration historically, psychologically, archetypally, why those fears and how to overcome that fear of the outside burning in order to burn with the passion that we have.
I didn't expect you to begin with what you began with.
Okay. I'm very unpredictable.
And I thank you for it, though. And I witness you in your honesty and in your anxiety and in your fear. And I can totally, totally relate, because this year was the year of my second Saturn return. And Saturn always asks us hard questions and asks us whether we are going to live or whether we are going to die. And this year, I decided that I was going to step into interviewing women, hearing their stories and sharing their stories, supporting them in their journey. But that also meant that I had to be on video as well. And which is a big fear and causes anxiety for me. And I was this morning staring into the mirror saying, you can do this. Battling all the things in my head that were saying, but you're going to look funny. You usually forget your words. You're not very polished, as an interviewer. And so overcoming all that fear and anxiety, and the shame that I feel on the inside that I might not be presenting the way other women present in public, having to overcome that to be able to step into my purpose and help other women step into their purpose. So I completely understand where you're coming from. And I thank you for your honesty and for not pretending, because how much of our lives do we wear a mask? And and as you say, to stay safe. And how often do we drag things from past lives, things from our childhood, things from yesterday, into the present moment, and we're not unable to unfold. So how do you think that what are some methods that we can use to honor burning women within ourselves and to also allow her to express herself?
I think the first thing to do, this is the advice I give in Creatrix, my most recent book, but it's what I get asked again and again, and it works for everything. Number one, create space. Create space for yourself as you are. Safe space for yourself. And at first that might just be a space in your bedroom, that you can be completely yourself, that you don't have to have the mask up, that you don't need to be hiding, that you don't need to be scared, that you can just feel like you and feel safe being like that. And the second thing is to create time. So to allow yourself pockets of time where that is a regular practice. So like when I say practice, it kind of, I'm not somebody for big routines, and I'm talking about something that you do again and again and again because you're practicing getting better at it. It's not like you do it because you're perfect at it now. You're not doing it to show off to anybody else or prove anything. You're doing it because it matters to you. Mm-hmm. So you create space and you create time for you to show up as you. There's no more requirement on it than that. And sometimes that might look like lying and crying and screaming. Sometimes it might look like putting on some music that you like and moving your body to it in the way that you want to, not worrying about what anybody else would think about, not worrying about if you're a good dancer, if your bum looks good in this position. You're just doing what your body wants to do. It might look like reading a book that's really, really meaningful to you, that other people might laugh at, they might scorn, it doesn't matter what type of book, it's that you need that right now. It might look like getting yourself a journal and simply showing up to it. You don't have to write 1,000 words. You don't have to describe what happened yesterday. You don't have to be grateful for anything. You just have to show up as you are and put that onto the paper. And it might look like squiggles and scribbles that nobody else would understand. It might look like a bunch of words that don't seem connected, but it's what you need to express in that moment. And in that, getting used to showing up for yourself and expressing what is real for you, gradually that becomes a part of your life. Gradually you're like, whoa, I love that bit of my life. I love being able to show up and be me. I want to share that with my best friend. I want to share that with my partner. I want to share that on my Instagram. Whatever it is, there is this inbuilt desire in the human soul to connect. And I say this as somebody who needs vast amounts of time by myself and doesn't enjoy doing people-y stuff very much. But there is still, because the individual soul is a drop of something much larger, and so it's always seeking to get back to that larger bit, to commune with it. And so expression desires to be heard. The human self desires to be seen, to be beheld, to be appreciated, to be loved. We desire this feeling of this need to be witnessed. Witnessed in our authenticity. And first we have to learn to do that ourselves, because we've put on so many masks that it's hard to know who we authentically are, what we authentically want to express. So that's why you have to do it by yourself first. Because if you do it with other people, around other people, unless you're really, really feeling safe with that group of people, you will perform. And what we're trying to move away from is performance and into authenticity. But once you have sourced that authentic expression, and it's not polished or clever, but it's real, it's really true and real for us, and we know because it feels resonant, it echoes throughout our bodies and our minds when it happens, then the next desire is to express that, to share that, to have that witnessed with someone else. And so it's that being able to move into that. But before we can do it, we've got to find it in ourselves. And we've got to then know every time we reach out towards people, when does the mask start coming on? When does the performance start happening? And we just need to notice that and go, okay, still not feeling quite safe here. Still needing to put this on. So that is what I can suggest best, because being a burning woman isn't a performance.
Yeah.
It isn't about going and shouting in people's faces or performing sexiness or power. It's about experiencing the burning within, the burning desire, the passion, the need for expression, the authenticity within, and learning to express that. There is no point I mean, I'm really grateful. Burning Woman is a big hashtag. An awful lot of my quotes from the book get put out on Instagram. It's wonderful. But you see an awful lot of sexy 20-somethings kind of in their sexy bodies, kind of doing their sexy thing. And I'm like, it might be authentic to them. It might. And if it is, then all power to them. But to me, often it feels like a performance to go with something that they want to be. And great, it's a step towards it.
Mm-hmm.
But Burning Woman, our power is not performed. It is raw and wild and messy and authentic. It is true to us. It doesn't look like how other people are going to expect it to look. It doesn't look often like how we expect it to look.
I love that. Creating time and space, witnessing ourselves in fearless authenticity. I have that as a tagline on my website, actually, fearless authenticity. And witness and being witnessed. So witnessing ourselves and being witnessed. And having that journey be as authentic as possible in terms of being able to drop the masks first with ourselves, and then, you know, progressing to dropping the masks with the outer world and allowing ourselves to be seen and feeling safe to do so. I think it's just so much progress has been made on this topic, and so much progress still needs to be made. And these conversations are super important because I think women are asking themselves in their private space, how can I be authentic and how can I be safe? And then I think that a lot of women decide that they can't be, because there's a piece of self-loathing, you know, that we're still digging out, that we're still unpacking, still having conversations around.
Well, so, as I said, our authenticity is messy. So in our authenticity, there is rage, there are tears, there is snot, there is, you know, there is orgasm and the possible not orgasming. There is, you know, there is everything in there. And when we can't accept all of that, when we can't accept the shadow bit of ourselves, when we can't accept the rejected part of ourselves, all of that stuff, when we can't, our authentic self is not our unedited self, but it is our full self. It is our full humanity. And we have been told again and again and again and again, that is not acceptable. That is disgusting. That is this, that is that. And we've internalized that, and we use that as a stick to beat ourselves with and shame ourselves with. So before anyone else can shame ourselves, we shame ourselves first. Oh, I'm so miserable. Oh, I'm always moaning. Oh, I'm crying too much. Oh, I should feel happy. Oh, I should be grateful. And, you know, like, as much as the self-care, self-help, new age industry is great in many things, and another way, it just makes you feel crappy about being crappy sometimes. Like, it's part of us. You can't just whitewash that and say, oh, I'm all peace and light, and I'm all... No, you're not. Nobody is. Like, there's shit in there. There's trauma in there. There's sadness in there. There's anger in there. And it's all real. It's all part of our authenticity. And if we feel that in order to be authentic, that isn't part of it, then we haven't got it, because then it's a performance. Then we're just showing people what the bit of ourselves that we want to see.
So true.
And there are times and places where it's not safe to shout. There's times and places where it's not safe to cry. There's times and places where it's not safe to get physically naked. Absolutely. People, like, we have to take care of ourselves always. But there are times and places when we can, and if we can start to do that by ourselves, then we have perhaps achieved what we are here to do. We are literally living as ourselves. End of story. But God, how hard it is. Because we've been told that we're not acceptable in so many different ways, that how we're experiencing things, what is real to us is not okay.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of the work is telling ourselves that it's okay. You know, we spend a lot of time telling each other or out there that it's okay to be authentic, but I think the conversation always has to begin and end with ourselves, where we tell ourselves it's okay to be myself. And I know for myself that is something that has evolved over 59 years. It's still a conversation with myself. You know, it's not something that I'm good at, but something that I'm getting gooder at. And these conversations really help, you know, to open that container and to allow other women in and say, hey, here's two women who are just being real and who are finding the safety between each other to be able to speak these words. How can how can I speak those words with myself? How can I speak these words with another woman? And that kind of brings me to what you do as a publisher of women's books written by women for women. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about? Just quickly, how you started that and where has that evolved to?
So I got the call,
yes,
internal call, to write a book, and I discovered an archetype in a book by Lynn V. Andrews called The Creative Rainbow Mother. And I searched everywhere on the internet, and there was one blog post on it, and that was it. And I was like, no, I need to know about this archetype. This is who I am. I'm not a good earth mother. I'm somebody who needs to create in order to be sane, and I need to be a mother. So how, what, why? So I had to answer this question for myself, and I did that by writing my first book with a baby on the boob, and all three of them had chickenpox, and I was not surviving. And yeah, like, you asked me how I write 9 books with 3 children. It's pure survival. I didn't need to write books until I had children. I love my children dearly. I'm grateful for my children, but I struggle. So Toni Morrison said, write the book you need to read. If you can't find it, write the book you need to read. So that's what I've done. I struggle a lot with life. I'm not very good at life. So wherever I am in my life, I write the book that I need to read in order to get through to the next bit. So I submitted to several publishers, got some really lovely rejection letters. I'm not being sarcastic, they were genuinely really lovely, but they were rejection letters.
Yeah.
Got published. It wasn't what I was hoping for. I was needing more editing support. I was needing more emotional support as a new author. I didn't get much of a cut of my own takings. I wanted to make decent money from this book that I'd poured my heart and soul into and that was selling really well. So I thought, you know what, I can do better. So I'd been editing a magazine for 6 years and writing a column for it. Whilst waiting to get published, I had self-published 2 books. I thought, you know what, I've actually got enough skills, because my 2 self-published books did as well as the published one. Except I was making all the money from them. And I had complete creative control over how they looked and the covers, and I was like, yeah, this is for me.
Yeah.
So I took the very crazy step of saying to my husband, right, I'm going to set up a publishing company, as you do. Taking all the skills I had as an editor and a proofreader and as a designer and a writer and as somebody who talked to lots of creative people over the years and kind of helped mentor them. Bless you. Thank you. Said... So we started up, using a self-publishing model, but offering all the things that self-publishing doesn't have. An editor to work on your book with you, proofreading, somebody to help know how to market it, how to, what covers work and what don't in this day and age, and to give the emotional support, which is the most massive thing, because traditional publishing is massive pressure. Do a big launch, loads of bookshops, and, an awful lot of writers are anxious, people who need a lot of downtime, who feel things very deeply. And it's insane to put them into that sort of situation. And then you just dump them after 2 months of promoting their book, right, on with the next one. So I was like, no, we need to look after women who are going through this process. We need to help midwife their work, support them emotionally so that they know this is okay. This is how it feels when you're going through this. This is how other women have, coped going through it. So that, you don't get burnt out people at the end. You get people who have got a creative baby that they're proud of, that sells over a long term, that is hitting a niche group of women rather than, putting you into the mainstream and getting you ridiculed. Instead, it's reaching directly via social media to the women who are attracted to it and helping to build real life communities of people around those books. Seems like a good idea to me, and that's what we do.
Wow.
So I'm being the change I want to see in the world is what I'm being. We give books to red tents and women's circles. We gift money to several women's charities. We give books via World Reader to children in the developing world. Like, we do what's important to us.
I love that. And it's important work and timely work. I think that you came along into this space at a time when women really needed it. What I wrote down that really stuck out for me was midwifing the work or the books.
We really feel that because, it's a, I was going to say a complementary process. Like, we're bringing our skills there, but it's every author's baby, and we're not going to take their baby and name it something they don't want it to be named and dress it in something they don't want it dressed in and sell it in a way they don't want. It has to be authentic to them. So we have to be able to work in partnership, and that matters because, I'm a mother of 3 children and 9 books, and my books are as much babies as my children are, like slightly less work, but they matter that much. Like, they are the fruits of our minds and our bodies and our souls, and they need to be respected like that. And so that's what I bring to the party, because I understand it. I know it from the inside, whereas most publishers, it's just a business.
Yeah, and when you've written your own books and you know exactly what the process feels like and how you feel after you've written and when it's out in the world, what happens to you internally once your work becomes part of the world, unless you've been there and done that, it's really hard to understand what comes with that emotionally and, how much heart space is given to that. And so, and I know exactly how that feels. I've written 3 books and I'm writing my 4th one, and wow, it's just a huge, expansive process. And to have the right person behind you and to really understand you as a woman is such a gift. So I really, really applaud you for the work that you do, and thank you for showing up in this way in the world. It's been such a huge honor to interview you, and I'm so grateful for the time that you have spent with us. As also not a people person, I know how important that alone time and that space that we carve out for ourselves is. So I really, really value the time you have spent with us. And how can people reach you? What is the best place for people to find you?
I hang out on social media quite a bit. I like sharing inspiring words and images. So I'm Lucy H. Pearce on Instagram. We're Womancraft Publishing on Facebook and Instagram. Lucy H. Pearce. I've got a Facebook page and personal profile too. I have lucyhpearce.com, which is my website, so you can, read my bio, follow my work, see my art, read my blog posts. But I don't blog on there very often now because all of that goes towards writing time, goes towards books. But there's 10 years worth of blogs there.
Wow. Thank you, Lucy. I look forward to having conversations with you again, and it will be listed at the end of the video where people can find you, so it'll be easy for people to connect. And thank you again, and blessings on your journey. Thank you for being so authentic.
Thank you.